Inside Out. I'm Kim Larson. I'm a certified functional nutrition coach, fast like a girl coach, and founder of larsonnutrition.com as well as larsonbotanicals.com. And today we're talking about something so many people are feeling in real time, that sense that the mind is busy all day long, yet not always clear, connected all day long, yet not always calm, and stimulated all day long, yet not always nourished. So a lot of people are describing it the same way. They say that they can still kind of get things done, but it feels harder to stay with one thing, right? That the focus is just not there. Reading feels different. I know that I listen to a lot of podcasts now because of this. Instead of reading the books, I listen to them on tape while I'm driving around. So reading feels different. The quiet time feels different. Even resting feels different because the mind has gotten so used to checking, refreshing, scanning, and moving on. There's a mental speed to modern life that can feel normal simply because it's everywhere. And that is why this research matters so much. It gives us a clearer look at what happens when the brain gets a break from constant mobile internet. A 2025 pre registered randomized control trial tested exactly that question. Researchers enrolled 467 adults and asked them to block all mobile internet access on their smartphones for 2 weeks. Could you imagine? I mean, some people are so addicted to their phones. 2 weeks using an app that objectively tracked whether the block was actually on. Calls and texts still worked and were allowed. The desktop internet still existed. The change was very specific: no mobile web, no mobile social feeds, no app driven internet access in the pocket all day long. And after 2 weeks, participants showed improvements in sustained attention, sustained mental health, and subjective well being. And 91% improved in at least one of those core outcomes. So, what makes that study even more useful is the design of it. This was not a vague screen time survey where people guessed how much they were on their phones and their researchers tried to, connect that to mood. This was an intervention. There was an initial intervention group and a delayed intervention group. And when the second group, the delayed intervention group, did the same 2 week block, they improved too. That replication inside the same trial strengthens the message. The signal did not appear once and disappear. It showed up again when the second group went through the same change. There's another detail that makes the findings feel very real to me. This was hard for people to do. Of the 467 participants who committed, 266 actually set up the blocking app, and 119 met the pre registered compliance threshold of having the block activation for at least 10 of the 14 days. Could you imagine? I cannot imagine having 14 days without my phone, right? The social media and everything else. I'm going to have to try this. That tells you something important. Constant mobile internet is woven deeply into everyday behavior. Even a short interruption in access changes daily life enough that many people struggle to stick with it. And yet, even when imperfect adherence, the trial still found meaningful benefits. This is where I want to start the episode today, because with the hopeful part, the brain responds to the environment we give it. And so when the environment shifts, attention can shift with it. And when the rhythm of the day changes, the brain begins to follow that rhythm. And that is the foundation of neuroplasticity. Adult brains are not fixed, they change structurally and functionally in response to experience, environmental stimulation, learning stress, and repeated habits. So when people say, I feel like my attention is not what it used to be, one useful way to understand that is through an adaptation. The brain spends years practicing rapid shifts of attention, quick novelty seeking, and constant responsiveness. It gets better at those things. It becomes efficient at scanning. It becomes efficient at switching. It becomes efficient at checking. And when that pattern becomes dominant, slower forms of cognition can feel less available. Deep reading, sustained concentration, reflective thinking, long form conversation, patient listening, and even quiet rest all ask the brain to do something different than what mobile internet trains all day long. This is why I think sustained attention is such an important phrase here. Sustained attention is the ability to stay within what is in front of you without drifting off every few seconds. It is the cognitive backbone behind reading and writing, listening, working, driving, learning, prayer, reflection, and even meaningful conversation. In this study, sustained attention was not measured by asking people how focused they felt. It was measured objectively. And that objective measure improved after the 2-week mobile internet block. The authors describe the size of the improvement as comparable on that measure to reversing about a decade of typical age related decline. Could you imagine? Reversing a decade of typical age related decline. That does not mean 2 weeks without mobile internet turns everyone into a genius. Don't we all wish? It means attention is responsive. It moves when the conditions change. And that matters because so many people have assumed that losing focus is just the avoidable cost of modern life. This study suggests something more dynamic. Attention may be much more trainable and recoverable than people think. So why would removing mobile internet help that much? First answer is interruption. Interruptions carry a cognitive cost, even when they look small. A vibration, a banner on the screen, a sound, a preview of a message, a quick glance at a notification. The moment something arrives, part of the brain shifts towards it. And that shift has been tested experimentally. In a well cited 2015 study, researchers found that cell phone notifications alone disrupted performance on an attention demanding task, even when participants did not directly use the phone. The distraction effect was comparable in magnitude to effects seen when people actively use the phone for calls or texts. That is a profound idea when you really sit with it. The interruption starts before you even open anything. The cue itself pulls on attention. It opens a loop in the mind. Something has happened. Something may need me. Something may be useful, social, urgent, rewarding, or emotionally charged. Even if the phone stays face down, some part of the cognitive system has already shifted. And once you understand that, a lot of modern mental fatigue makes more sense. Many people are not only doing their work, they're also repeatedly recovering from tiny attentional departures all day long. That recovery costs energy, it costs momentum, it costs mental clarity. And the more often it happens, the more fragmented the day feels from the inside. Let me heat it up in here a little bit. It's a little chilly. A 2023 field experiment adds another layer to that picture. And that study, Participants in the intervention group disabled notifications from communication apps for 1 day, just 1 day. And researchers found that reducing notification caused interruptions, benefited performance, and reduced strain. And this is useful because it moves the idea out of the lab and into ordinary life. Fewer interruptions can improve how people function and how taxed they feel. I can tell you that I leave my cell phone on silent most of the day. Unless I'm really expecting a phone call, then I'll turn on the volume. But otherwise, it is on silent and I get the notifications about every other hour. So I don't like to have the sound on. The second answer is media multitasking. Mobile internet encourages a style of attention built around partial engagement. You read while your messages arrive. You listen while checking something else. You work with a browser open, text threads open, email open, tabs open, social platforms open, news open, and your phone nearby. The brain starts living in an environment where many streams compete for priority at the same time. And research on media multitasking and sustained attention has been more mixed than popular headlines make it sound, which is exactly why I like being careful here. A 2014 series of studies found that higher self reported media multitasking was associated with poorer performance on one sustained attention measure. And a 2023 meta analysis concluded that there is an overall negative link between media multitasking and sustained attention, while also noting that the literature has debated the size of that effect. And that is a useful, balanced way to frame it. The exact size varies, but the overall direction points toward a cost when attention is repeatedly split. I can tell you that I used to have ADHD when I was a kid, right? It's the sugar, it's the whatever. And I used to be bouncing in my chair all the time, rocking while I was going to sleep, moving, moving, moving. So the third answer is a rewarding learning. One reason mobile internet is so compelling is that it keeps delivering uncertainty. The next swipe might bring something funny or useful, flattering, exciting, maybe surprising or emotional, socially rewarding or professionally important. That unpredictability keeps people checking. I remember reading a study, this is back when I was dating before I was married, and the swipe culture. And it was similar to this kind of study where it was looking at, when you're always swiping, you're always looking for something better. And you never focus on one person that could be the right person. You're constantly swiping and looking, and it distracts your brain. So you cannot ever focus on one person. So a 2021 computational study analyzing more than 1 million posts from more than 4,000 people across multiple social media platforms found that social media behavior conforms qualitatively and quantitatively to principles of reward learning. So, in plain English, these systems keep teaching the brain to come back and look again. You can feel that in real life. You pick up the phone for one practical reason, and 10 minutes later, you have touched 5 different mental worlds. A message from a friend, a work email, a headline, a video, a comment, a product, a text, a feed, a search, a photo, a thought you did not plan to think, right? You go in for one thing and then you're like, all of a sudden you're caught up in a video or whatever. That's something that I have found that I would get caught up in, is that I would go check my notifications and all of a sudden I'm into a video and then I'm in the next video and the next video. And the next thing I know, a half hour's gone by. I'm like, oh my God, I got to stop this. The nervous system is being asked to pivot again and again and again. And after enough repetition, that starts to shape what feels normal. Steady attention begins to feel slower. Silence begins to feel less familiar. A long article begins to feel like a bigger ask, right? That's why, like, a lot of times I listen to books on tape, but man, when I got time to sit and just read, I love it. It's so meditative. It's amazing for the brain. And then you remember how to spell words. So one uninterrupted task begins to feel unusually demanding. And that does not mean the brain has lost the ability to focus. It means the brain has been practicing something else more often. That is why I keep coming back to the word rhythm. Mobile internet creates a rhythm of mental life. Check, scan, swipe, respond, refresh, compare, react, move on. That rhythm becomes the background music of the day. And when that rhythm is constant, the mind rarely gets a chance to settle into a long cognitive stride. The study also helps people explain why people often feel better emotionally when mobile internet drops away, not just more focused. The researchers looked at the possible mechanisms and found evidence that the intervention affected how people spent their time, along with social connectedness, self control, and sleep. Blocking mobile internet increased time spent in what they call the offline world, decreased time spent consuming media, increased feelings of social connectedness and self-control, and modestly increased sleep. Those changes in turn helped explain the gains in subjective well-being and mental health. That part is incredibly important because attention does not live in isolation. It lives inside a whole day. When the stream of mobile content slows down, time opens back up. People may talk more face to face. They might move their bodies more. They might spend more time outside. They might read a book more, engage more fully with one thing at a time. The PNAS study specifically notes increases in person socializing, exercise, and time in nature. We all know that these are such big benefits for our health, mental health, physical health, your well-being overall. And those are not minor substitutions. Those are exactly the kinds of experiences that support a steadier, healthier brain. And there's something deeply practical in that. Many people assume that they need a heroic level of willpower to reclaim their focus. But the study suggests a different result, a different route. Change the environment and the behavior becomes easier. Change the cues and the mind stops getting pulled in so many directions. Change what's available in every idle moment, and attention starts to collect itself again. That principle applies beautifully to health in general. The body responds to repeated input. So does the brain. Food quality matters because it is a repeated input. Sleep matters because it is a repeated input. And movement matters because it is a repeated input. Stress exposure matters because it is a repeated input. Like conversation, habits, relationships, and the digital world all become biological experience through repetition. And this is one of the reasons I think the topic matters so much for women in midlife. Many women already feel as though their minds are carrying too much. There's work, there's family, there's caregiving, there's emotional labor, sleep disruption, changing hormones, changing energy, and the pressure to stay on top of everything. When you place constant mobile interruption on top of that, the mind can start to feel as though it never fully lands. The issue is not simply too much screen time. The issue is a nervous system asked to remain continuously available. This is why I provide so many helpful blogs on larsonnutrition.com, healthy recipes to support your health, exercise routines. Please look at larsonnutrition.com to see all the information that you can get about healthy living, healthy recipes, healthy life. So that all changes how daily life feels. A quiet walk becomes a walk plus email, plus text, plus news, plus social feeds. A meal becomes a meal plus updates, right? We're looking at our phone while we're sitting having a meal. Rest becomes a rest plus checking. I try to put my phone away. I turn it off. I don't touch it. It's in another room. Go to sleep. Even the small gaps in the day get filled. You're waiting in line, you're sitting in the car, you're walking from one room to another, you're standing at the stove. Those were once natural transition spaces where the mind could breathe. Mobile internet turns them into opportunities for more cognitive input. And those transition spaces matter. They are where the brain integrates. They are where our thoughts settle. They are where creative links form and where emotional residues clears out, right? I mean, you think about sleep at night, you can actually rest your brain during the day, meditate, do deep breathing. This all helps with your brain. This is where the ideas deepen, right? When every gap gets colonized by content, the day loses many of its natural recovery windows. The mind stays fed, but it does not always stay restored. The broader literature points in the same general direction, even when the details vary. So, a 2022 randomized controlled trial found that taking a 1 week break from social media improved well being, depression, and anxiety. The effect in that study was linked in part to the reduction in total weekly time on social media. And that does not mean every person needs to leave every platform. It means stepping back from a high frequency digital environment can quickly change how people feel. In a 2024 systemic review and meta analysis, also found important associations between social media use, mental health, and sleep. The authors concluded that the literature supports a connection between social media use or problematic social media use and mental health outcomes, as well as sleep. And that's helpful because it reminds us that mobile internet does not just affect concentration, it can shape the broader terrain of daily functioning, how activated the mind feels, how late people stay stimulated, and how rested they are by morning. And sleep matters enormously here. When people sleep better, attention improves, emotion regulation improves, stress tolerance improves, decision making improves, follow through improves. The PNAS smartphone trial found a modest increase in sleep and also found that sleep helped mediate improvements in well being and mental health. So, even a small shift in nightly rest may be part of why people feel more themselves when constant mobile input eases up. And another fascinating detail from the trial is that the intervention did not reduce digital communication through calls and texts. That matters because it helps narrow the story. The improvement was not simply caused by people becoming socially isolated or unreachable. In fact, social connectedness improved. The benefits were tied to removing mobile internet access while leaving direct communication intact. In other words, the constant feed was the bigger issue, not human contact itself. That finding says a lot about what people may be craving underneath all the digital noise. They may not be craving less connection, they may be craving better connection, more direct connection, more grounded, more human, less scattered across apps and fees and algorithmic demands. The study also found that people with higher fear of missing out at baseline tended to experience larger improvements in subjective well being and mental health during the intervention. That makes intuitive sense. When mobile internet keeps showing you what everyone else is doing, where everyone else is going, and what everyone else is posting, it continually stirs the feeling that life is happening elsewhere. Reducing that stream gives the nervous system a chance to return to the life directly in front of it. I think that is one of the quietest, but the most important pieces of this conversation. Attention is not only a productivity issue; it is also a presence issue. Where does your mind live? Is it mostly with the things you are doing, the person you are with, the meal you are eating, the road you are driving, the sentences you are reading, or is it half elsewhere most of the time? That question touches everything. It touches relationships because listening requires staying. It touches learning because understanding requires staying, spending some time there, right? It touches healing because many healthy habits require time and attention. It touches peace because nervous system steadiness grows in environments where the mind is not constantly pulled outward. And it touches purpose because meaningful work usually asks for a depth of attention that fragmented environments erode. It is so important to take time away from your phone. I'll go plug it in downstairs and go do a lot of work around the house and just leave it alone. This is why I see the study as bigger than a phone experiment. It is really a study about how environments, train human attention. Mobile internet is one environment. It is portable, it's immediate, it's predictable, it's socially rich, it's environment emotionally rich, it's always available. The brain takes that in and adapts accordingly. When the environment changes, the adaptation begins to change too. This is also why I would not turn this into a perfection challenge. The lesson here is not that everyone must block mobile internet for 2 full weeks or they're doing healthy wrong or doing health wrong. The real lesson is that attention responds to dose, frequency, and context. Reducing the volume of interruptions may help. Turn the phone off. Don't get your notifications constantly. Check them maybe twice a day or 3 times a day. Creating internet free hours may help. Making mornings quieter may help. Keeping calls and texts while removing feeds for certain stretches may help. Charging the phone outside the bedroom may help. Like taking the browser off the phone may help. A 1 day reset may help. A weekend reset may help. A 2 week reset may help even more. The beauty of the study is that it gives people permission to experiment with confidence. You do not have to guess whether your brain is like a quieter environment. You can test it, you can feel it. You can watch what happens to your ability to read, to listen, to work, to sleep, to cook, to walk, to be with family, to finish a thought, to notice the weather, to notice your own mind. You can watch what happens when boredom returns a little bit. And boredom, by the way, deserves more respect than it gets. Boredom is often the doorway into a slower, more self directed kind of attention. When the phone's not there to instantly fill every idle second, the brain has a chance to transition. It may feel restless at first. The restlessness is often the nervous system recalibrating. On the other side of it, people often rediscover things they thought they had less time for: reading, conversation, stretching, right? Journaling, meal prep. I love to meal prep. Deeper work, working out, even simply sitting and just thinking or meditating. Those are not minor luxuries. Those are all the spaces where a lot of healing and clarity actually happen and great ideas happen. Just sit and be with yourself. And because this is the Larson Health Podcast, I always want to bring it back to the body as a whole. Mental fragmentation affects health behavior. When the day feels fractured, it becomes harder to plan meals, cook real food, notice fullness cues, stay on top of hydration, follow through on movement, transition into sleep, and make consistent choices. Make consistent choices. A more collected mind supports better health decisions simply because it supports more intentional living. This is one reason why I care so much about helping women build health routines that reduce friction instead of adding more. At larsonnutrition.com, so much of what I do is help people create environments that make healing easier, simpler meal rhythms, more supportive routines, better metabolic stability, better stress recovery, better daily structure. This conversation fits right into that. Attention is part of your biology. The digital environment around you is part of your biology too. That's why I'm getting ready to start a 5-day protein challenge. And in the 5-day protein challenge, it's actually a 14-day protein challenge, but I'm going to have 5 days of Zoom calls. It's only $19.99 starting April 20th. We're putting together, all the documents are already put together. We're sending out newsletters. Sign up for my newsletter at larsonnutrition.com and get some of that insight from these recipes. There's going to be 90 recipes that are going to be shared with you. They're all easy to make protein meals. There's going to be a whole 14-day guide shared with you. I highly recommend that you print that off so that you have all the insights. There's places where you can take notes to like pay attention. Like when you eat the protein during the breakfast, lunch, and dinner, how do you feel? Do you feel like you need are you hungry afterwards, or do you feel full? Do you feel like you need to have more food after you're done eating if you've gotten the right amount of protein for your body, for your activity level? And we're going to go into all of that over the 5-day program. So sign up at larsonnutrition.com and learn more. So when you hear about a study like this, you do not need to hear it as a judgment. Hear hear it as an invitation. There may be more room to feel clear when you realized. There may be more room to feel steady than you realized. And there may be more room to think deeply, sleep more peacefully, and move through your day with less inner static than you realized. And sometimes the first step is surprisingly simple. Create a little more distance between your mind and the constant stream. Let some gaps stay open. Let some moments stay unfilled. And let your attention spend more time with your actual life. Because the mind is always learning from what it is immersed in. Immersed Immerse it in interruption and it learns interruption. Immerse it in steadier rhythms and it begins to recover steadier rhythms. That is the heart of this research. And it is so helpful. In just 2 weeks, people showed measurable change. Their lives did not become perfect. They did not disappear from the world. They did not give up communication. They simply stepped away from portable, all day internet access on the device that travels with them everywhere. And for many people, that was enough to improve focus, mood, and well being. So there's the question I want to leave with you today. What would your mind feel like with less pull? What would your evenings feel like with less checking? What would your mornings feel like with a little more quiet? And what would your attention feel like if it had fewer reasons to scatter? You do not have to answer that in theory. You can answer it in practice. So try a real experiment. Give your brain a different environment. See what comes back. You can listen to the Larson Health podcast and Spotify on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and watch full episodes on YouTube, along with snippets on LinkedIn and Facebook and social media on Instagram and TikTok, where I also share behind the scenes clips, recipes, and bonus insights from my coaching practice. And if you're ready to take your health to the next level, visit larsonnutrition.com to learn about my personalized programs, hormone supportive meal plans, and one-on-one functional nutrition coaching. And thank you for joining me here today.